It looks like it's live, but I just want to make sure that when we're live streaming, nothing is feeding back.
Gotta hide YouTube.
We get the
YouTube music, where did YouTube go?
oh, I see it. But
There it is.
do we have sound?
I hear you. YouTube music, where did YouTube go?
We're working. I see it.
Yep, it looks like it's live on here.
I get one more public complaint, we'll see how long that lasts on the board.
I don't blame you. I don't, Sure.
Okay,
You met.
do we need to do introductions again? We have more people here tonight, so welcome to the Budget Committee Work Session number 1. I think might be an issue. Do you hear feedback?
I know, your lines are in front of
I'm
you.
hearing it, but
I've been told that I have old ears and I can't hear high pitched sounds anymore, so,
probably
that's
have to,
unfortunate. Yeah, my dog can hear them.
um,
He's the one who told
Get rid
me,
of
he's like,
the-
there is a noise right now that you should be correct.
your.
My kids can hear them too, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I blame it on the
Still.
school dances in the late 90s when they have the music so loud that you're like, I feel like you're caught balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might
Before
be-
we recognize that you're.
Okay, we'll go with that.
You'll learn.
Okay, we'll start over, Budget Committee Work Session number 1. Let's go around and do introductions because there's some new people that weren't here at the last time. I'm Jennifer Griffith. Taught most of you last time, business manager.
Susan Holiday, the superintendent.
I'm Shelley Brown, Budget Committee member. Alex Baldwin, Budget Committee member.
Erin McMullen, board member.
Erin Dad, board member, so I wasn't here last time, I was the only emergency.
Tom King, budget committee.
And Tom Littell, school board.
Matt Cook, Budget Committee.
Sandy Aaron School Board.
Kirsten?
Kirsten Davis, I'm a speech therapist at the elementary school.
Oh, any word on Ryan?
Ryan's not able to make it tonight.
And I have not heard from Kim, so those are the only other two that could have possibly been here. So tonight, we, no official action, it's just more of an information meeting, kind of laying the groundwork for what the current year has been and looking forward to next year. Trying to just give some more information as we get started into the budget committee. At the end, we can decide if we need to have the second work session, which is scheduled for March 31st. And then after that, we don't meet again until early May, where I will hopefully have the budget ready to present to everybody, and then we can go from there. So, there's no other questions, we'll just get started. We have an agenda. I printed out copies of the presentation for everybody. You can make notes or whatever, and if something doesn't look right or didn't print well, I can always send it PDF copy later. So, do just a brief reminder of the budget committee review. We have some district objectives. Susan's gonna share that, and the board can chime in on those pieces as well. Review current year to date, a little bit of the legislative session that's going now, I'm almost done, and then talking about going into next year. We'll introduce ourselves, but here's everybody on their terms again. And we had an update, I hope everybody got an email I sent out with the budget calendar update with the board meeting thing.
Yeah.
So the board hearing will now be, or the budget hearing will be on the 18th, instead of the 11th. And that's not a meeting that all the rest of the budget committee needs to come to unless they want to. But the board has to be there.
The board meetings are riveting, so I would
They are.
personally.
I think you should all sign up.
So last time we talked about what we can and can't discuss at these meetings before the official budget meeting, and we talked about the first 3 at the last information session, and this time we'll talk about these other 4 pieces briefly. We won't talk a whole lot about the organization and departments, a little bit about staffing maybe, but just vision and goals and what our priorities are going into budget season. And then I'll show you some pieces about current year. A view again of the budget cycle, and we're still in the first phase of it. The last phases take a couple more months. So I'm gonna turn it over to Susan and talk about we used to have a graphic in here that had the vision strategies that went K through 12. The objectives for each grade. The board,
they weren't priorities anymore, or there were different priorities. And so the notion of being able to shift gears a little bit, the board really, we started about a year ago, a strategic planning process in earnest. And while that is still happening to shape out the larger, longer term, not, multiple, 3 to 5 years, that these were objectives that we wanted to get to be able to get some measurable information and to understand how we're moving the needle forward. So in December, these came through really in earnest. And those objectives now become, and I condensed them just a little bit, creating a broader career planning program at middle school and high school with the notion of being able to say, let's look at all the options that students have about college, career, work, military, whatever, trade school, and be able to put all those things out there to be able to make sure we are helping students explore all possible options in order to be able to move forward into their next steps. The second one is to continue and enhance programs that encourage regular school attendance across all grades. You'll also see in a few minutes that that's one of the measures that the state is asking us to also take a look at. So it combines quite nicely. The third one is connecting every student with an adult in the district to check in with them. And, it's really about students are one caring adult away from being a success story. And so we always want to have someone that checks in. I think about the story of a principal at another high school, and he said the kids at that graduation ceremony got roses, and they were to give, one rose was for them and the other rose was for somebody that meant something to them. And he said one of the young women in the audience came up and gave him a rose. And he said, I felt so bad because I'd only seen her twice, probably in my time. And the fact that I was the only one that she felt good about giving that rose to, I appreciated it, but it was also disappointing to think that it was somebody that had only touched base with her so minimally. So that's a really important piece for us. The fourth one, develop a program where teachers at all levels identify students at risk of not graduating and provide supports across all future grades for those students. Students don't just magically become freshmen and say, I don't think I'm going to finish. So how do we support from the very beginning? And the fifth one was initiating long-term facility planning processes that outline capital improvement priorities. We will look to be able to bond again in 2030 around our facilities, but we also want to keep our facilities up to date consistently as well. There was a sixth one on there that is about working with the Philomath Community Foundation on a long-term school district grant, or excuse me, endowment, thank you. And that's still in process right now of being able to have those conversations for consideration. So I put up there also what the state is looking at. Senate Bill 141 passed in 2025 is lovingly or not called the accountability bill. And these are things that the state is looking at for us to be able to have measures toward. And they're right now looking at what are the 4-year targets. So what would we expect 4 years from now? And then being able to look at what that means. So K-12 regular attendance is 1. It should be 3rd grade English language arts. I hit 2 instead of 3, my bad. And right now that's as measured by the statewide assessment. So the end of the year test.
What is regular attendance? Like, what is?
A student who is a regular attender, we consider that somebody who attends, a student who attends at least 90% of the school days. So when you look at an attendance rate, you get a very different picture than when you look at the percentage of students who are regular attenders. And so it's just a different way of being able to look at it. Good question.
If you have one kid who literally never goes, everyone else all goes, that one kid brings it all the whole way down.
Yep.
The percent of regular attenders shows, a metric basically targeted all at an individual.
Yep, perfect. 8th grade mathematics is one of the newer ones. Ninth grade on track to graduate. It's really a look at numbers of credits that freshmen have. And do they have enough to be able to be on track to earn enough to graduate from high school? And the Center for High School Success has done some great work in making a determination that that is a linchpin year. If ninth graders aren't on track to graduate, the likelihood becomes quite considerably high that they're not going to graduate from high school. So it's really a common push there. The other one is a 4-year graduation rate and a 5-year completion rate. So the 5-year completion rate takes into account those students who take an extra year. Those students who earn a GED are counted in a completion rate. They're not counted in a graduation rate. So that's the information. And then we will have a choice of one local metric out of 5 that have been approved by the state board. And so we'll take a look at those. One of them is student growth. So we'd be looking at academics through the lens of local performance assessment. So it wouldn't just be built on state testing. There's another one that's connected to students who complete career and technical education programs. Either they're involved in or they are completers of a full program. There's another one about second language. Let's see if I can get the other ones. One is about next steps after high school, who is doing what, and after a year, how successful are they being? And the other one that they put on there was 5th grade science as an academic measure. So we'll get to pick one of those. We may measure more than that, but we'll pick one of those to be able to put us along the way. So
There are dollars attached to this for you guys to do all this work.
no. But thanks for asking.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of it's work that we're already doing.
Yeah, I
but
figured some of
the-
it was, yeah.
The additional reporting. That can be done.
So we say those things, that the local objectives and these statewide common metrics as these are the things that we want to make sure when we're attaching dollars to different things and programs. That's where we want a direct resource, is to be able to target moving the needle for our kids.
So as we've gone through this year, we're heading towards those targets, but some updates for the year in general. We're at currently about 1605 in enrollment. I have a couple of slides that maybe show a little more detail on some of these things as we go through. You can see how we've changed over the years. That's about what we predicted for the year. We thought we started the year a little bit higher, but understanding the data from our student information system has been a bit of a challenge for enrollment, but we've narrowed it down now. We're at 1605, and that includes our charter school, which is around 203. So 1,400 students in the district buildings. What we didn't share before to the new folks is the buildings in town, or how the district is made up. Do you know, like, all the buildings in town and how we're made up? We have the primary school, which is kindergarten first, all of that. Okay, I don't want to reiterate it if you guys know how it's all made up. But I would hate to come in here and not know all that. I'll show you some information about how we're comparing budgeted revenues and expenditures to actuals for the year. We had a curriculum adoption just adopted at the board meeting last month for elementary math. So that comes in with a price tag of about $100,000 that we had to cover. We have money in our student success grant that we set aside and some general fund dollars to help pay for that. We always set aside some for curriculum adoption, but it's never quite enough. It just keeps going up. So I mentioned student success. That's part of our integrated guidance. The state has put all of these grants into one program, one structure to try to simplify things. It's not so much simple, but we have 3 major grant funds that are in integrated guidance. The SIA grant, which we have RTII literacy support in. We've done additional instructional assistance, behavior support, some of our LVL services, the behavior specialist. We've used it to purchase instructional materials and classroom technology, like the new lines and the Chromebooks for classrooms. And we are helping to support the athletic and activity programs with that, and to offset some of the coaching stipends. Measure 98 is high school success. We can use it for a little bit of eighth grade piece too. So we use that for the bridge program, which is a transition from eighth to ninth grade during the summertime in August. CTE support, more Chromebooks, student Chromebooks, and our Philomath Academy staff, half of the licensed staff at the academy is in Measure 98. Because they service mostly high school age. And then we have the early literacy grant. That's another one of the large ones that's in that integrated guidance. We covered our lit camp for K-4, right? For summer literacy program. We have an SLPA this year to help with some literacy support and additional RTII.
SLPA stands for.
Speech language pathology assistant. You want to speak to that a little bit, or why we chose that?
Why we chose that?
Yeah,
It came forward actually from our speech language pathologists in language and information from the state about the importance of oral reading. And, the support of that person, the speech language pathology assistant, was really to say we've got some students, especially our youngest learners at K1, that have some slight issues that don't put them in a special ed classification. But with a little bit of help, a little bit of work, hold the tongue this way, do this, do that, there can be some differences made that can allow some of our youngest learners to soar. And so by putting that support in at Clemens Primary School, we have found that it's been a great support for some of our kids. I'll be anxious to see in a year or two if you're seeing the fruits of the labor at PES that are coming over from Clemens as a result of some of that level of support.
Gotta go back there.
um,
I'm sorry, you may have said it. I know RTI is response to intervention, right? SIA, I don't know that.
that's the student investment account.
Investment.
Yeah, that's part of the Student Success Act. That's the funding that came from that. We get about 1.5 million every year. It's a big grant fund for us. Another big thing that just happened is our student services department moved to the PYAC building. So they're housed there now.
The secondary building.
Yeah,
To
the small little house beside PYAC, they're letting us use that rent free. We're paying just utilities, so our student services needed a home. They've moved quite a bit, so I think this will be a good move for them.
Formerly Benton County Schools Credit Union.
Yeah. They're getting settled in there now.
I think you missed the.
Yeah, I was gonna go back. One thing we've seen over the last 2 years is an increase in leaves. Our substitute budget has been blown out of the water the last few years. We just didn't see it coming. I think, once COVID hit, people took more leave, I think, and it's just keeps going. We have the paid leave Oregon now that helps cover leaves. It's maybe not so it's more attractive, it's just makes it more available for people to take the time they need. But we do have more substitute costs to cover because of that. And then our payroll specialist is busy managing the leaves. So it's a little bit of a double edge there. Our people are supported. They can take leave and do what they need to do. But it has caused some increase in substitute costs. We've been fortunate to have enough substitutes. We've opened that pool in the fall of every year, and we've had an abundance of classified subs. And then our licensed sub pool is a little bit smaller, but then by the end of the year, we have some student teachers in the district, and they can become substitutes for the classroom, which helps in the buildings they're in. We still have to pay them just like a substitute, like we would any other licensed sub that comes in, but it's a good support system. They already know the building. They may be just in the classroom where they're student teaching, so. That's been a good program that we've kind of partnered with OSU to make that happen with the student teachers that are here. And then some of the facility and technology things that we did this year, we used E-rate money to update Wi-Fi and switches. All the buildings should have upgraded Wi-Fi. at this point. E-rate helped offset that cost. We only had to cover 40% of it. E-rate, the federal program, is a discount program, helped pay for 60% of it. It wasn't as much as we anticipated. They didn't get to do as much with that project as they wanted to, but they have the Wi-Fi switches updated in place. And we also did quite a bit of classroom technology and staff Chromebook updates. Starting of this year, over the summer and into the beginning of this year. Most classrooms that needed them got new lines. All the staff have Chromebooks and all the classrooms or students have Chromebooks. So that's been a big investment. Some facility things that were done, Joey, the facility director, has done just a lot of smaller projects this year. Worked on some safety issues, panic and door locks in here, replaced some of the panic alarm door locks. The high school forestry building, the fire alarm was attached finally. They
The
did-
fire alarm could go off at the high school and you wouldn't hear it in the forestry building, so now you can.
That's been updated. Communications is a little better between the two buildings now. Did some paving at the playground at the elementary school. The PMS gym floor got refinished. I haven't actually been there to look at it.
It's
I've seen
beautiful.
pictures, but if you haven't been, they did some amazing fundraising this year at the middle school, and the district kicked in a little bit, but the whole gym floor got refinished. First time since it was put in. I think it's been over 30 years since that floor was finished, so that was a great project. And then we're continuing to do the LED lighting updates around the district. That I think is something we have to do, but we've gotten support from the Energy Trust to help offset some of those costs.
The other one on there is swimming pool updates
Oh,
that we're doing.
mhm.
And some of that work is slated to be done spring break. To be able to take care of the filters and doing some
Under
underneath kinds of fixes.
mechanical room work, yeah, I missed putting that on there. So this graphic just shows you how we've done in enrollment over the years. We had, right before COVID, we were at about 1,640. COVID hit and everybody around the state dropped. And then we slowly gone back up. 23, 24 was an anomaly. Enrollment was huge that year, which bumped us for revenue for a couple of years, and now we're back down to normal enrollment areas. 1,600 seems like a reasonable amount for the district. We're talking also about interdistrict transfers. That was a big deal in 23, 24. We ended up having to shut off interdistrict transfers from outside for the first time ever.
Mhm.
I think we talked about that a little bit last time. And then we're reviewing how many we're allowing each year now as the year progresses. Right now, we're closed off to any more for this year. These classrooms are full and it's getting towards the end of the year. Hard to bring in new students at this time. And this was an interesting graph that was asked to provide a few years back when we were talking about staffing. So this shows the percentage increase, not the actual number of increase, but the percentage increase of FTE over the years. The bottom line is our enrollment, which just is, doesn't fluctuate a whole lot. The blue line is our general fund FTE, which it's gone up gradually, but not a lot. But once 1920 is when Measure 98 funds and SIA funds, those big grants came into play. And we were able to increase our FTE quite a bit.
You said 19,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, 1920, sorry.
You've done.
2020.
2020.
2019, 20, I just cut off the 20, so yeah. So that's when those grant funds came in, our FTE, and so we're able to provide a lot of extra supports to students across the district. The RTII supports, some special ed supports, so our FTE has grown. But that's also could be a cause for concern as we move forward into the next 2 years. But I had this graph that just showed overall FTE increase, and 3 or 4 years ago, somebody asked about seeing the difference between general fund and grant funding, and it's interesting to bring that up to see, and you could pinpoint the time when those grant funds come in. So we just got a new state school fund estimate for this current year, just came in literally this week. Before we had, you can see down at the bottom, the blue box has reduced a little bit from the last time we met. That was around a little higher, 17 million for our state school fund. But we got our common school fund, you can see up at the top, increased $130,000, which sounds great when it comes in. You get a bigger chunk of money when it comes in. The state, when they did the initial estimate for state school fund, was much lower in the common school fund category. They released the funds just last month, is much higher, but that's considered in our local revenue, so it offsets what we get for our state school fund grant for the money that comes directly from the state. It's a 1-to-1 offset, so that change in our state school fund grant has just changed the amount of that common school fund. So our overall amount that we've gotten is not changing.
I mean, this. um,
Yeah, I provided the one for the current year and then the new one for next year for you, so you could see them in real life. No magnifying glass needed.
And these, I assume, do not reflect this state of things in Salem in the middle of this off year, yeah,
No.
right.
It was updated based on what other districts have, updated the state with property tax revenue, local revenues, and then the common school fund and any ADM or enrollment information.
So let me ask it a different way, so. You know, there's a lot of gloom and doom predicted, the legislature, they were considering, I think they passed it. We're gonna divorce some of the tax breaks, the federal level and Oregon level, that brings, a big chunk, I think it did pass.
It did.
I heard the Republican agree in front of the voters, but, would these numbers have been before these cuts?
This release, I don't think would have included any of those cuts if they had passed them on to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right.
And so not only, so it didn't have the original cut, the original expected cuts, but then obviously doesn't have the relief that we might be seeing through, one, the state revenues were higher than projected, that was one improvement, and then the fact that they're divorcing us from the Fed's tax.
Right.
Okay, so.
And it doesn't, we'll get into some of those updates later, but I don't think we will see any changes to the state school fund budget. What they're passing through the districts for this biennium, based on what we've learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this year or next year? Yeah.
For
I mean, the
the,
rest of this year and.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the main funding sources, yes.
Yeah.
There could be some other pieces that have some implications, but not for this. The main state school fund, 11.36 billion that they set for the biennium. I wanted to share how this is just general fund revenues, where we budgeted for the year and where I estimate we're gonna end up for the year. You'll see, it's pretty similar, we're not too far off, but that prior year state school fund reconciliation amount of the negative 300,000, that is for the 24-25 state school fund that we received. At the end of 24-25, we received our state forest funding, which is included in the local revenue. But it was too late in the year for us to report to the state for ODE to adjust our state school funding for the year. They were already
It was already allocated.
It was already allocated. They weren't gonna make any changes at that point. So we know that when our May reconciliation payment comes this year, which is the reconciliation for last year, we will have that taken out of our, and I'm anticipating it to be around 300,000. That the state forest funding was over 400,000, but with some other adjustments that have happened throughout the year, that's my estimate of what we will owe back.
We didn't know that when we budgeted for 25-6.
It was, no, it came in in the middle of May,
Okay.
so it was right as we were budgeting, and it was kind of a surprise.
And that's why the contingency.
Yes, and looking back, I think when we started this year, we could have reallocated that beginning fund balance and taken some out and set it aside and showed it as a deferral. And I should have done that, and that would have shown that our beginning fund balance for this year was a little bit
Right.
closer to what we're gonna end at. So understanding that,
You would have deferred the revenue or accrued the expense? I'm just curious.
yeah. I guess accrue the expense because we know it's
Right.
really gonna come in as an
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just ways to show the numbers a little more accurately. We did get some good news from this legislative session that, we talked about that local option equalization grant. And that was one of the possible cuts that they were gonna take away for the whole biennium, which would have been, we budgeted 600,000. We know last year we got 840,000 for that grant. And if they had taken that away, that would have been a huge cut for us this year. We've heard that that is gonna happen and it's gonna be fully funded for this year, 25-26. We don't know next year. They haven't said it will maybe prorated for next year. They may not have enough set aside to fully fund it next year, but at least for this year, and we've gotten our estimate and it's $843,000. So that helps.
Or 26/7.
No, this is
25,
25,
26,
26,
yeah.
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 26, 27, we don't have the calculation for yet. And I anticipate
And-
that one will be less.
But the local option brings in 1.5 million.
Yes, yeah,
When we first passed that, it was only like 600 or 700,
it was, yeah, it's grown a lot.
3x roughly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it has with, and it's just based on assessed values, but we've grown in population too, so we have.
Well,
Yeah.
and
And
considerable
then,
development.
yes,
Where it comes from.
yeah, and our investment earnings are a little bit higher than what I budgeted, and that's investment earnings. We have an LGIP, local government investment pool bank account where we put the bulk of our funds. We just transfer in for daily expenses as we need. So that's earning interest, and we started the year at almost 5% interest. It's down to 4, and I think it'll be 3.75 by next month, but it's still.
Still better than my savings account. I know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Does something.
It is still something, so that's what I anticipate us to have by the end of the year and that, so. All those little bits add up to kind of cover where we fell short in some revenue. And then looking at expenses, this is where it's gonna take us down our ending fund balance. Some of it is because of that prior year reconciliation amount, which is gonna reduce our revenue amount. But our salary expenditures are higher than what we budgeted. Payroll costs and benefits are lower. We always have a bit of a cushion in there for the medical insurance, the way we budget for it, so that helps offset, charter school support, it's basically what we budgeted. And then all the rest, services, supplies, have all, you know, everything's expensive, so we're going to be close to maxing our general fund budget this year. I have put off we have that transfer category. I've put off, transferring everything that we had set aside in there. Like to our reserve accounts, that I think that's kind of an optional one. For us that we can, not do if we need to by the end of the year. I haven't done it yet. We may do it if things look better by the end of the year, but at this point, I'm not planning on putting those transfers into the reserves. We do have I think close to 500,000 in that reserve account now between facilities and technology and a vehicle reserve. Which is helpful. We hadn't had that for a long time, so it was really something. It's about 500,000 altogether. And that's held in a special revenue account. That's not in the general fund, so it's separate. Any questions about general fund for the current year? And then, this is the same report I give to the board every month. This is just the appropriations for all funds. And showing where we're at for the year. On target, this includes all the encumbrances, which are, what we anticipate to spend for the rest of the year. So. We'll be close. And fall under appropriation, so we can get another good audit review. We just have to monitor some of the categories as we get to the end of the year.
We are watching right now, we've labeled non-essential spending. And so we're just telling people it's, you know, if you've got something budgeted let's not spend it on just anything. Because we want to be able to have a cushion wherever we can make it. So,
And the message that even though it's budgeted, if you don't need it, you don't have to spend your full budget amount. We talked a little bit already about the legislative session. It's the short session. It will be done on March 8th. So we should have any final bill documents, a summary of it by next week sometime. So they started out earlier this year saying that the statewide budget deficit was $700 million. And through the year with revenue forecasts, the decoupling from the federal tax issues, yeah, that we're down to 128 million, which still sounds like a huge amount to be in a deficit, but they've
No,
no, billions and billions.
the state is what, 3 billion budget, right?
Yeah, small percentage. But they did decide not to use any of the reserve funds to balance it. No education stability fund or rainy day fund.
the chairs of the Ways and Means Committee presented their budget and they're pretty adamant that they don't want education to touch education stability or the rainy day fund. They don't want to dip into those.
But even that, they've told us that there shouldn't be any cuts or reductions to standard K-12 funding. Stable state school funding, the student success grants, those should still be the same, and other state grants. There may be some other reductions around the state. There was a big one they're pulling back to help fund ODOT from. I lost my train of thought on that one, but, so I think there's other programs in the state, they're cutting vacancies and not filling them for the year to help offset all of those. There were a few things proposed in the session to go towards education, outdoor school, they pulled back some funding this year and they were trying to add it back, that didn't get passed. They had a proposal for school meals for all, and that, from what we can hear, did not go through either. So the list of bills impacting education on the right-hand side, that's an educated guess of where we are now, or
Some of the heavy hitters.
yeah, that some of them may still be in play, the ones that are struck out are not. One of the big ones Susan's been talking about to me is the one for the Coos Bay Hospital. They want to dip into the common school fund to help rebuild the Coos Bay Hospital, which doesn't seem like an appropriate funding source.
They want the Coos Bay Hospital to, they want to borrow from the common school fund
Borrow.
Yeah,
Still,
and pay it back. But what it does for the common school fund is kind of a to be determined. And there's a lot of conversation, they're pushing hard with it, but there's a lot of conversation about why are you picking on common school fund for hospital? And I have no doubt that Coos Bay and a community needs a hospital.
Right.
And they need that. It's just a question of where they want to go after the money and then are saying we're not gonna go into any of the rainy day fund or education stability fund for education if there's a need. So there's still a lot of tension on that one coming in at the 11th hour.
that House Bill 4050 was a suggestion for a revamp of how they calculate education funding, and that didn't go anywhere. I'm imagine it will come back again next year in the long session. And they were trying to repeal the unemployment for striking workers.
Yep.
And that didn't go through.
No.
So, we'll see what comes from that. Some of the financial impacts from that, we've heard that there's flat funding for federal grants. So we get Title I, Title II, Title IV, and IDEA, which is for special education. We don't anticipate any increases from this year to next year. Usually we get a slight increase, but I don't think we'll get much of an increase. We have a few personnel staffing in those grants, not a lot, and our federal funding is a small portion. Altogether, it's less than $500,000 that we get in federal funding, so it's not a huge portion of our budget. Our state grants, the big ones, we should see the second year biennial increase like normal. We have the allocations, they usually change a little bit as the year goes on, but we expect an increase in those ones for next year. And then we already talked about the local option equalization grant. We know we're getting it this year, we don't know if it's gonna be fully funded next year, so we have to consider that. And some more budget considerations for next year. The second year that we're in this, we'll be in the second year of the biennium, it's a little easier, we already know what the overall state funding is, but they've already given us our state school fund estimate, that's the big chunk that we were always waiting for. And when they're still in the long session for the biennial budget setting, and we're budgeting ourselves, that makes it really hard, but second year, it's a little bit easier. For next year, we're anticipating a slight reduction in enrollment just based on birth rates, statewide. There was a bit of a bubble in the kindergarten age range for next year. That birth rate for that year was higher in Philomath. For some reason, it was quite a bit higher than the birth rate in Corvallis. But we don't know if those students will actually are still here, if they'll be here, so we're anticipating kind of the curve that we've been on a trajectory of, instead of a bubble.
Do we anticipate any increase in inter-district transfers from Corvallis because of school closures in Corvallis?
We're gonna set our limits based on what we can absorb classroom size. We've had some calls, one day we had 3 calls within a half an hour, so there was something that was going around. People were asking about inter-district transfers. We haven't opened them yet, so we don't know for sure. But,
That's on next week's board agenda, is to approve those 26-27 initial inter-district transfer limits, and we can always, shift them as the policy says at any point in time. It's gonna be interesting, because I think originally when the schools closed, we were hearing left and right of students wanting to come. And now we'll see about, there are some families that we're not sure if they're gonna like them in 6th grade in an elementary school instead of going to a middle school, and so those students are gonna stay for that particular purpose. Or if they're not, I'm done with elementary school at 5th grade, so therefore I'm gonna move. So I think, that'll be a big part of it. But then the other thing that Corvallis has said recently, well, more recently, has been with the closure of 2 schools, you get rid of 2 administrators, custodial staff, office staff. And so just by sheer nature of that, they're actually looking at, can we add back some of our arts? Can we add back some of our library? And so I think as some of that comes out that says, in the schools that continue to exist, we may be able to do more in some different places. I don't know what that's meant for people's interest in staying or not. So we're gonna watch it and see. Our plan right now is to, if the board approves the inter-district transfers next week, then we're gonna start accepting the inter-district transfer requests. The plan right now is to open enrollment for all grades on April 15th. Because that's the night of kinder orientation, and instead of just opening kinder, we said, why not just open it all? And then we'll start accepting some of our first inter-district transfers. We've tentatively toyed with no later than May 1st, that we'll start making some of those initial decisions and accepting students in. So that's kind of where we are right
now. We know we're gonna have to do some budget reduction strategies going into next year. Like I said, in the staffing consideration line, salary increases that if we keep everybody whole outpace what we anticipate for revenue. So that's kind of the bottom line as we look to next year. We're talking with administration now about what that plan looks like and getting a little closer on our numbers. It's better now that we know what we have for state school funding, what this year's gonna end like, so you just have some more conversations to have. Classified negotiations are starting, so with that group, we'll be working on that and start next week.
now. Start Monday.
And Susan already talked about the accountability updates, and that's something we'll have to continue on with. There's no additional funding from the state to do that with reporting and accountability standard. We have, I'm not sure, I haven't heard, the rotation right now for curriculum replacement is, social studies. But I haven't heard yet what grade level maybe, or looking at it, or if we are gonna do.
And a lot of it, social studies has not been ever a huge, or of late, a huge request. And some of that has been more of the online current resources that you can get to be able to use for materials that meet the same needs, that aren't about a textbook that you need to paste the last 3 presidents or governors of the states in the book just to make sure it's current. And so that's our typical big ones that we get are the years that it's language arts, math, and science. Those 3 seem to be the ones that are the biggest lift.
A little mention about our regional services for LBL ESD, they provide us support through. They give us some funding, but we end up having to pay more than what they allot for us to use. So that will increase as well. We have to determine if we need to keep the same FTE of those supports, psychologists, behavior support.
Family liaison.
Family, yeah. One thing we got back to this year, we just took our first one, it's called the MAC survey. It's the Medicaid Administrative Cost Survey. So staff, there's one day every quarter, staff take a survey and say if they've provided information or given details about Medicaid eligible services. So you have somebody come in the office and they have a sore tooth and you say, do you have a dentist? And if not, you maybe direct them to supports or working with family support. So that survey came back. They have some amazing support at LBL who directs it. She's been great with training everybody, understanding the process. I think in the past, we would get $5,000 to $6,000 with all the work that went into it. It wasn't worth doing the survey, but after this last one, we don't have the estimate yet, but it sounds like, that will be a much better revenue source for us to help offset some of the increased needs costs for behavior and life skills and anything that's out there. So the last estimate, it was a really rough estimate, but she thought it could be around 50 or 60,000 a quarter to bring in. So that's pretty helpful when we weren't getting anything before.
It beats 5,000.
Yeah.
Long shot.
Long-range facility planning, that's in the objectives we have to do, and working towards our new capital bond in the next 5 years that we'll have to go towards. Speaking of capital bond, the current one we have a large lump sum payment due this June. We've been setting money aside. We'll have enough. We'll make that $20 million payment in June, and then we continue.
Is it June of
June 27, yeah, I'm
Sorry,
talking about
next year.
next year's budget. Yeah, sorry,
Got it.
in this June of that budget, we make that payment. And then we still have some remaining payments that go on through 2031. The last 1 year is a small payment, so it could be, once we rebond, I think that can be taken care of. In addition to the capital bond, we also have a PERS bond that we're paying. I gave the board information about that at the last board meeting. That one is also going away. We'll make the last payment on that coming up soon. And I have a graphic in here to show how that will affect our PERS rates. It's not pretty. We already talked about integrated guidance, early literacy, summer learning. There's a summer learning grant out there that's in addition to what we already have. And it's a competitive grant that we could go for to help with summer education funding. We haven't decided if we're going to do it yet. In the past, it's been a ranking based on your literacy scores and need really for your district to have that summer learning extra support. And we have never qualified, which is a good thing. It means our literacy scores were high enough to not get us bumped up on that list. But this new grant is competitive and they have 2 scoring pieces. One is based on those type of literacy scores and poverty scores, and our ranking is fairly low on that. The other piece of the scoring is based on your
plan.
application
Yeah, what you
plan.
put forward. The applications just came out last week. And the first initial conference session was held early this week. It was held Monday, and the application is due March 20th. So, it's got a quick turnaround.
Yeah,
And so that's part of the reason that I'm looking at, what I really wanted to hear is how much staff time do we want to put into writing a summer grant if they're gonna tell us based on the information from before, from prior years, that you don't have a chance to get it. And so that's kind of what we're weighing now. And some of the parameters around it. We didn't, if we would have come up to be able to be eligible last year, one of the things was you have to have, we would have used it for our lit camp for our K4 kids. You have to have 80 hours of continuous instruction. So we did 3 weeks in August of 3 or 4 hours a day, which is nowhere near 80 hours. So we would either have to do full days or back it up into July to be able to meet that criteria. We're still at the 80 hours as a requirement if we want to move forward. And so there's some things we have to consider there too. So between program and the likelihood that we'll get funded, and I just got the ratings for, they don't call them bonus points, but they call them some kind of point. So that I can take a look at where out of all the districts do we really fall and get a pretty good idea of what the likelihood is. But, yeah, it would be nice if we could, but we'll see.
And how much money roughly?
They talked about being able to give up to, I don't know how many, but up to $1 million grants over the next 3 years. So it would be a 3-year grant. And I haven't gotten into it deep enough to know kind of what they're looking at, but it would be quite substantial. There were some people who got summer learning money over the course of the past 2 years that really had more than they could spend because it was an allocation that was given to them. So it'll be interesting to see. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
just a few more considerations on this slide. Ever-present inflation. We know that our insurance, liability insurance coverage is gonna go up 10 to 12%. That's $30,000 right there on top of what we already pay.
Why is that?
Our liability insurance, that's just what they told us. Rates are gonna go up
Inflation.
through PACE.
I was gonna say, it's not like we go out and competitively bid or anything.
Right, yeah. And then our non-K-12 programming, we continually talk about the pool and the preschool that we put a little bit of money into, but we don't get funding for, so that's another thing we have to think about going into next year. One thing I didn't put on this sheet that I thought about later, I don't know why I didn't think about it, is our transportation contract. We've put out a proposal for transportation contractors. We're going through the process now. We have interviews with the 2 contractors that submitted proposals tomorrow and hope to have a decision coming up soon on that. So with any new contract, there could be price increases that we have to take into account. I shared with you on paper, but this is just another visual of our state school funding estimate for next year already. You can see the increase that we're estimated to receive, about $938,000. And this is just one piece of our general fund, but it's a big portion of our general fund that is.
This is just the 4951
Right, yeah, that's the increase for the biennium.
year 2 of the budget.
So that's what we have to work with for next year. But as we talked about, we know that we'll probably have to go through some budget reduction work. And some of the strategies we've come up with so far, and there will be more, we'll continue the conversation. Staff attrition, we know we have some staff leaving and trying to decide whether we replace them full or half or not at all. Looking at class size review, making sure that we're right sized for around the district. Department specific reductions, do we look at maintenance and technology? Do we look at the pool? Do we look at the business office, everywhere around? Where can we find places to make some easy reductions? Well, they're never easy, make some reductions. And then looking at our transfers that we have to, we're mandated to make those transfers from the general fund to the other funds, but the ones to reserves and some of the other places that we have some room, wiggle room there. And the capital and technology projects, how much money do we put into those? We were fortunate over the last couple of years to be able to put quite a bit into those. To get some new classroom technology, staff, Chromebooks, some facility updates that have been needed. We may not be able to do quite as much for the next couple of years. And we're open to suggestions, ideas, anything as we go through this process. That's kind of what the budget committee can be here to do also, give suggestions and input. So, well, we'll be on that road. And then just a brief update on the PERS and the bond side account. I gave this to the board. This is a much smaller version of what I gave to the board last week. So we took out a side account in 2002 and PERS held that money and used it to offset our PERS obligations every year from then until it expires in 27. So that rate relief off of our PERS pension rate has been between 4% and 10% over the years. It saved us over $5 million from the beginning until now. By the end of it, our payment obligations go beyond the date of the expiration. The timing of the PERS bond payout was odd, the way they had it set up, because it goes beyond the biennium and in the middle of a fiscal year. So the way it ends and the way our last payments work, they can't do a rate relief during the year just because it doesn't cover the whole biennium, because PERS issues our pension rates for the whole biennium. So the timing of the ending of it is a little bit screwy and the way PERS is going to handle it. But all that to say, by the end of it, we'll probably have saved $4.5 million over the cost, over the timeline of the bond in rate relief from our pension that we pay. So you'll see in 27, 29, they've already issued advisory rates for our PERS rates. We will go back to that school pool rate of 29% for tier 1, tier 2, 26% for the OPSERT members. And that doesn't even include our 6% IAP rate that we have to pay. So that's a 6.5% jump in PERS rates, but this is for the 27, 28 year. PERS rates for this year will stay the same. We don't have any change, just increase based on salary increases. So that's something to look forward to. And that's something to discuss. Do we try to start a PERS reserve? We did have one at one point. It got used to balance the budget for so we don't have a PERS reserve anymore to help account for this increase that's going to happen. But there might not be much extra to do that way.
Right.
I have to ask every time how this again works. I think I have to last meeting. So this PERS bond is always baffling to me. So we issue a bond, get a chunk of money, and then do we invest that money? We give it to PERS,
Here to PERS.
and then they use that to reduce our rate. And in theory, that reduction is better than the rate we're paying to the bondholder.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a perfect explanation.
Oh, it's taken me asking about 28 times to get to it.
Yeah, well, it seems like every time I have something that doesn't quite work right in the year-end reconciliation or my cash flow or something, it's related to the PERS bond and accounting for it, because it's not money that we see, it's payments. They deduct our payments right out of our state school fund. So we don't actually see any money coming or going. It's just out there held in a separate fund, but we have to account for it in our system, so. Yeah.
And we're writing a check in June of 27 on the construction bonds
Mhm.
for 20
million.
$20 million. Where is that money?
That's held in a separate LGIP account. Right, and right now it's,
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
state managed,
right,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's one of the few ways we can invest funds.
Right.
And that's making interest too, and the interest on it is much higher than what was
Sure.
anticipated.
Yep.
In the beginning, so, yeah. So. That was what I had to share, and any questions are welcome. But that kind of lays the groundwork for what we're doing. In the next month, I'll continue working on building the budget. We'll have it ready for that early May meeting. as we gather more information and go from there. And like I said, we could have the work session at the end of March. I don't believe there will be much more information to share about statewide funding. We could gather more information about current year, any more strategy or discussion if you want to be. That's up to this group.
I mean, if there's any earth shattering news, I would say yes, and then, or if not, then no, but then the other factor is if. We do think the cutbacks are gonna have to be considerable to start getting a peek into that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful,
Yeah.
but other than that, if there's not a reason to have a meeting. I'm the first guy to cancel the meeting.
I'll second that.
So, yeah, I go to a particular Boy Scout meeting that. It doesn't matter, it's an hour and a half meeting, and by God, they're gonna fill that time, even if they only have 10 minutes to start. But the man who spent his entire profession going to meetings, God, it kills me. Anyway. Jennifer, as always, very clear,
Good job.
helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
You'll send this stuff electronically, right? I don't.
And it should be, hopefully everything worked and it's on the website, on the YouTube channel, so.
Great.
So you can rewatch it. If you want,
Thank you very much.
yeah,
Thank
if
you.
no questions, I'll turn off this and then
Thank you.
chat.